devil turned out to be me. Turned out to be yourself.
Being a genius often comes with many challenges, as the individual may experience fighting several demons. This is the story of Richard Pryor, a groundbreaking African-American comedic genius. His upbringing was challenging, as he experienced many traumatic events at an early age. After his death, some secrets about him were finally exposed. So what was the terrible secret that Richard Pryor carried to his grave? Could it be related to his childhood traumas, career, way of life, or even his spouses? Join us as we explore the life of Richard Pryor and the secrets that came out after his death.
I was a child, right? And I grew up in seeing my mother go in the rooms with men.
Pryor was born in Peoria, Illinois on December 1, 1940. From a tender age, his life was shaped by challenges and hardships that would later influence his career. Richard grew up in a brothel managed by his grandmother, Marie Carter. This was the same place where his alcoholic mother, Gertrude L., worked as a prostitute. His father, Leroy Buck Carter Pryor, was a former boxer, hustler, and pimp who served in the military during World War II. His parents married when he was 3 years old, but their union did not last. After his mom abandoned him, Pryor was raised primarily by Grandma Marie, a tall, violent woman who would beat him at the slightest opportunity. Pryor was one of 4 children raised in his grandmother's brothel. He was maltreated at age 7 and found solace in going to the movies to escape the grim reality of his life. At school, Pryor played the part of the class clown. He later discovered his love for acting in his early teens. However, he was expelled at age 14 when his school kicked him out for a petty offense. Pryor had to earn a living by taking odd jobs. He was everything from a janitor and meat packer to a truck driver and drummer, until he joined the military in 1958. He served in the Army for only 2 years, but spent virtually the entire stint in an Army prison. He was discharged for fighting with another soldier. According to a 1999 profile article about Pryor in The New Yorker, he was incarcerated for an incident while stationed in West Germany. Angered that a white soldier was overly amused at the racially charged scenes of Douglas Sirk's film Imitation of Life, Pryor and several other black soldiers beat and stabbed him, although the soldier survived. Despite all the struggles, Pryor found humor to cope with his pain and make sense of his world. Laughter became his refuge, a source of relief from his life difficulties. This marked the beginning of his comedy career. He continued to make people laugh through his humor, which became a tool for his connection and survival. Keep watching as we explore his career. Pryor's career. During his teenage years, Pryor played the piano and sang at cabarets and clubs in Illinois. In 1963, he moved to New York City and began performing regularly in clubs alongside Bob Dylan and Woody Allen. Still, he soon realized people preferred his jokes over his music. His early performances drew humor from his personal life, including his struggles and observations, which allowed him to connect deeply with his audiences. These performances gave Pryor a sense of purpose and offered him a way to escape the harshness of his reality. Juliet Whitaker was one of the first people to recognize Pryor's potential. She was the supervisor at a local recreational facility. She saw something special in him and took steps to nurture his comedic talent. Juliet encouraged Pryor to participate in local theater productions and organize talent shows to give him a platform to perform. Her support was crucial in building his confidence and helping him refine his craft during his early years. Through these opportunities, Pryor began to see a path in comedy even as he navigated many challenges in his personal life. Bill Cosby then inspired Pryor, and he created a stand-up routine performed throughout the Midwest. Moving to New York was the best decision of his career, as his comedy skills attracted plenty of attention and made him a star. Pryor's comedic styles matured as he grew older, reflecting his personal growth and societal changes. Pryor made his television debut on the variety show On Broadway Tonight in 1966. Guest appearances followed on other television variety shows such as The Ed Sullivan Show, The Merv Griffin Show, and The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. By the late 1960s, Pryor had landed a few small parts on the big screen, appearing in The Busy Body and Wild in the Streets. He released his first self-titled comedy album, The Richard Pryor Show, around this time. Pryor toured extensively, doing his stand-up comedy act. Playing Las Vegas, he served as Bobby Darin's opening act at the Flamingo Hotel for a time. Tired of the constraints and limitations on his material, Pryor walked off stage and took a break from stand-up. He retreated to Berkeley, California, where he met various counterculture figures, including Black Panther leader Huey P. Newton. Pryor scored several successes as an actor and comedian in the early 1970s. He wrote for television shows such as Sanford and Son, The Flip Wilson Show, and a 1973 Lily Tomlin special. He netted his first Emmy Award nomination, Outstanding Writing Achievement in Comedy Variety, for his work on The Lily Tomlin Show. The following year, Pryor took home his first Emmy, Best Writing in Comedy Variety, for another collaboration with Lily Tomlin, the comedy special Lily. His work attracted a lot of attention, and despite its X-rated content, his third comedy album, That Nigger's Crazy, 1974, was a commercial success and sold extremely well, and won the Grammy Award for Best Comedy Recording in 1974, a feat he repeated over the next 2 years. Fans of all racial backgrounds were captivated by Pryor's comedy, which consisted of situational and character-driven humor in place of straightforward jokes. He poked fun at the white establishment and explored the racial divide. Pryor spoke openly about race, identity, and societal inequalities. Audiences were drawn to his fearless approach, and his ability to bring humor to even the darkest aspects of life resonated deeply with them. His decision to escape conventional comedy opened the door to a more authentic and daring voice in his work. Following a transformative experience, Pryor began to incorporate profanity and socially charged language into his acts, including the use of the word nigga, a term he would later grapple with in his evolving understanding of its impact. In 1975, Pryor was a guest host on the first season of Saturday Night Live, SNL, making him the first black host. He later did his variety show, The Richard Pryor Show, which premiered on NBC in 1977. The show was canceled after only 4 episodes, probably because television audiences did not respond well to his show's controversial subject matter, and Pryor was unwilling to alter his material for network censors. He said, "They offered me 10 episodes, but I said all I wanted to in 4. During the short-lived series, he portrayed the first black president of the United States, spoofed the Star Wars Mos Eisley Cantina, examined gun violence in a non-comedy skit, lampooned racism on the sinking Titanic, and used costumes and visual distortion to appear nude. His creativity set him apart as one of the most influential comedians of his generation as he tackles issues others were scared to do with his captivating sense of humor, leaving a long-lasting impression on his audience. By the late 1970s, Pryor had a thriving career as a movie actor. He starred in the box office hit Silver Streak with Gene Wilder and Jill Clayburgh. In 1979, Pryor visited Kenya at the height of his success. Pryor swore he would never use the word nigger in his stand-up comedy routine again. His career was established in 1980s as he became the first black actor to earn $1 million for a single film when he was hired to star in Stir Crazy. Before the freebasing incident, which we will discuss later in the video, Pryor was about to start filming Mel Brooks's History of the World Part 1, but was replaced at the last minute by Gregory Hines. Likewise, Pryor was scheduled for an appearance on The Muppet Show at that time, which forced the producers to cast their British writer, Chris Langham, as the guest star for that episode instead. Despite his success, Pryor was known for his demanding and disrespectful reputation on film sets, and for making selfish and difficult requests. In his autobiography, Kiss Me Like a Stranger, co-star Gene Wilder says that Pryor was frequently late to the set during the filming of Stir Crazy, and demanded, among other things, a helicopter to fly him to and from the set because he was the star. He was also accused of using allegations of on-set racism to force the hand of film producers into giving him more money. Sadly, Pryor's health began to suffer, and he endured his first heart attack in 1978. After this health crisis, Pryor started work on what has been considered by many critics to be his finest performance. The film Richard Pryor, Live in Concert, 1979, garnered much praise and sold out many urban movie theaters. In his later years, starting in the mid-1990s, Pryor's health deteriorated again. He started using a power-operated mobility scooter due to multiple sclerosis, MS. His poor health was evident, and he often said that MS stood for more shit, creating humor out of his ill health. Despite his physical limitations, Pryor continued to work in both stand-up and films. He adapted his performances to suit his changing abilities and remained active in the entertainment industry, showing remarkable courage and determination. Pryor made a comeback attempt returning to stand-up comedy in clubs and on television. However, he looked thin and frail, with noticeable speech and movement difficulties. His comedy remained deeply connected to his personal experiences, as he played an embittered multiple sclerosis patient in an episode of the television series Chicago Hope, along with daughter Rain, in 1995. The role earned him an Emmy nomination as Best Guest Actor in a Drama Series. "To be diagnosed was the hardest thing because I didn't know what they were talking about," he said, and the doctor said, "Don't worry, in 3 months you'll know. So I went about my business and then one day it jumped me. I couldn't get up. Your muscles trick you. They did me." His last film appearance was a small role in David Lynch's Lost Highway in 1997, where he appears on the scooter playing an auto repair garage manager named Arnie. After his final performance, Pryor did not stay away from stand-up comedy for long. Within a year, he filmed and released a new concert film and accompanying album, Richard Pryor, Here and Now, which he directed himself. He wrote and directed a fictionalized account of his life, JoJo Dancer, Your Life is Calling, inspired by the 1980 freebasing incidents. After acting in Hollywood films and TV series and performing stand-up shows throughout the States, Pryor became a comedy legend and paved the way for other black comedians like Murphy and Chris Rock to make their mark. Pryor started it all. He made the blueprint for the progressive thinking of black comedians, unlocking that irreverent style. Comedian and filmmaker Keenan Ivory Wayans explained to the New York Times. But then, Richard had a dark side. Keep watching as we delve into this and its effect on his life. Richard Pryor faced significant battles with substance abuse. He had a long history of struggling with addiction, a habit he openly discussed in his stand-up comedy routines. His ability to talk about his addiction with humor and honesty allowed audiences to see a raw and unfiltered side of his life. His substance abuse led to a shocking and tragic event in 1980. Could the terrible secret that Richard Pryor died with be situations surrounding the 1980 fire incident? Keep watching as we uncover the story. The 1980 fire incident. Richard Pryor, known for channeling his misfortune into groundbreaking comedy, was lucky to be alive after setting himself on fire. The unfortunate incident happened on June 9, 1980, while he was freebasing volatile substance in a highly intoxicated state. Pryor doused himself in rum and set himself on fire. He ran down the street, suffering severe injuries that left him a third-degree burns on more than 50% of his body. Richard's bodyguard and aunt were present and attempted to extinguish the flames from Richard. However, he thought they were trying to smother him, so he ran onto the sidewalk shouting, "Lord, give me another chance. Haven't I brought happiness to anyone in this world?" The police were called, and an officer implored the comedian to stop moving, but he wouldn't. Eventually, once Richard made it about a mile from his Los Angeles home, the fire department medics arrived and put him in an ambulance to Sherman Oaks Community Hospital, where he was treated. Pryor spent 6 weeks recovering from the burns and much longer from substance and alcohol dependence. This incident became a pivotal moment, pushing Pryor to take a deeper look at his addiction and its impacts on his life. Pryor incorporated a description of the incident into his comedy show Richard Pryor, Live on the Sunset Strip in 1982. Reflective of his comic style, Pryor found humor in his suffering. He joked that the event was caused by dunking a cookie into a glass of low-fat and pasteurized milk, causing an explosion. At the end of the bit, he poked fun at people who told jokes about it by waving a lit match and saying, "What's that?" Richard Pryor running down the street. He won 2 more Grammy Awards for Best Comedy Recording, one for Reverend Do Right in 1981, and one for Live on the Sunset Strip. The act was released as a concert film that same year. Do you think this fire incident was an accident? Keep watching as we uncover the truth. Despite his successful career, Pryor's personal life was as troubled and tumultuous as his way of life, highlighting his difficulty in maintaining long-term commitments. He was a substance addict and was known for physical and domestic violence with the multiple women he was involved with. Shockingly, he married 7 times to 5 women. Aside from his multiple marriages, Pryor dated several women he met while filming movies. Keep watching as we check them out. Pryor's relationships. Pryor's first marriage was to Patricia Price, whom he married in 1960, but the marriage ended in divorce the following year. In 1967, Pryor married Shelley Bonus, and their marriage lasted only for 3 years as they divorced in 1969. Pryor then married Deborah McGuire, an aspiring model and actress, in 1977. However, they separated on January 1978, and their divorce was finalized in August. Pryor met actress Pam Grier during his marriage with Deborah through comedian Freddie Prinze. They began dating when they were both cast in Greased Lightning, 1977. Greer helped him learn to read, and she also tried to help him with his substance addiction. Pryor then dated Jennifer Lee, an actress and interior designer he hired to decorate his home. They married in August 1981 and divorced in October 1982 due to his addiction. Pryor later remarried Jennifer Lee until he died in 2005. We will discuss their love story later in the video, so keep watching to find out. After divorcing Jennifer, Pryor dated actress Margot Kidder while filming Some Kind of Hero in 1982. Kidder stated that she fell in love with Pryor in 2 seconds flat after meeting. Their relationship was brief, although intense, reflecting Pryor's unpredicted personal life, filled with passionate but often short-lived connections. Pryor's relationship with Flynn Belaine, an aspiring actress, was just turbulent. They met when the comedian performed in Washington, D.C. in 1984 and married in October 1986. 2 months after they married, Pryor filed for divorce twice within a short span, and their marriage officially ended in 1987. Despite this, they remarried in 1990, only to divorce again in July 1991. In addition to his complex love life, Pryor was the father of 7 children from relationships with 6 different women. So what led to his death? Does it have anything to do with his roller coaster relationship? Let's find out. His death. Pryor passed away on Saturday, December 10, 2005. The 7-time Grammy winner suffered a heart attack in the early hour of December 10 at age 65. Jennifer tried to revive him at their California home before paramedics took him to Encino Hospital, where he died. Witnessing his last moment, Jennifer said, "At the end, there was a smile on his face." She spread his ashes in Hana, Hawaii. This was where they married, so the state had sentimental value for them. He had previously suffered 2 heart attacks before the one that took his life. This was believed to have resulted from his unhealthy lifestyle. Primarily, his years of smoking are said to have caused him coronary heart disease. Although Pryor was previously diagnosed with multiple sclerosis disease in 1986, then he was still only experiencing slight symptoms. Later, he experienced drifting eyes, vertigo, tremors, muscle weakness, prickling sensation in his skin, an inability to detect vibrations, and chronic fatigue. "I never thought life would get boiled down to this," Pryor told the New York Times in 1993. "But you know, the worst part of being sick, the worst part of being in the hospital is, you can't go fishing. I love to go fishing, but when you're sick, you can't do none of that." Pryor managed to laugh throughout the interview, delivering biting lines. He was in the grips of MS, but he was still the same comedian he'd always been. Before his death, his daughter Rain would often speak for him since he could hardly talk because of the disease. Richard left this world a celebrated actor, writer, and comedian who captivated audiences in the United States with his talents. He was regarded as one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time. After Pryor passed away, many comedians spoke about his influence on their lives and careers. Director Spike Lee called Pryor an innovator and trailblazer, saying that Pryor's loss was great. Lenny Henry, a fellow comedian, said Pryor was one of the greatest comedians who ever drew breath, and said he was on par with Charlie Chaplin. His industry colleague, Damon Wayans, said this about him: "There are many kinds of comedians: the observational humorist, the impressionist, the character creator, the physical comedian, the self-deprecator, and the dirty joke teller. Richard Pryor was so brilliant that he could simultaneously incorporate all these styles and provide audiences with hilarious and moving performances." Pryor's family and friends held a private funeral service on December 17, 2005 to celebrate Pryor's life, contributions, and even his flaws. Have we revealed the terrible secret? The answer is no. So keep watching as we unveil what you've been waiting for. The terrible secret revealed. About 18 years after Richard Pryor's death, new secrets about the late comedian continue to pour out from the people who knew him best, especially his widowed wife. These secrets are something many people believed he died with, but it was still known to people around him. In the new documentary, I Am Richard Pryor, the comedy legend's widow opens up about his love life, substance use, and the time he set himself on fire. One secret his widowed wife exposed on Paramount Network's new documentary, I Am Richard Pryor, was the 1980 fire incident. Richard proclaimed the 1980 blaze was an accident resulting from an exploding bottle of rum setting on fire. He lied, Jennifer asserts, and people still say, no, it was an accident. No, it was a suicide attempt. It was self-immolation. He apparently had seen some Buddhists on television doing this thing too. Jennifer said that he had previously told her he wanted to end his life and warned her not to be home if she didn't want to get hurt. "He warned me," she claims to People. He said to me, "I've decided what to do. I have to do this, otherwise I don't know how I'm going to get out. There's no way out of this, so you need to leave so you don't get hurt too." I knew he was planning something, but I didn't know what. I called the house. Somebody answered, and then the next thing I knew, they dropped the phone and I heard someone screaming. And Richard at that time running through the house on fire. Before what Jennifer calls Richard's self-immolation, she remembers he set his bed on fire while doing freebase cocaine, the purest form of the substance, created by heating it to produce vapors for inhalation, an instance she believes was a precursor of things to come. "I came home one afternoon and I could smell the fire," Jennifer says. "I went into the bedroom and the bed was on fire. I moved out not long after that. I got an apartment in Beverly Hills and would see him intermittently." During one of those visits, Jennifer, who got sober after seeing how substances affected her then boyfriend, alleges that Richard tried to kill her. "One of the times I visited him, he was high on the substance and he almost killed me. He was in a substance psychosis. Whatever was going on in the substance-addled brain, he thought it was a good idea to kill me. If I had had a line of Coke or a glass of wine, I might have said, 'F you, Richard,' and that might have done the job. Instead, I calmed him down and I got out of there." It also hurt Jennifer that Richard seemed to love his pipe more than he loved her. "The addiction was very quick," she says. "I thought that this was controllable. I'd seen him when he had to do a concert film or do a job. He was very disciplined. But that all went out the window when that pipe was introduced." Another secret about Richard Pryor was his sexuality. Richard was involved with multiple women during his lifetime, so his sexuality wouldn't have been something to be questioned. But when Quincy Jones talked about the late comedian's sexuality in a bombshell interview, saying that Pryor had slept with Marlon Brando, everyone was shocked to their bones. This was an assertion that his wife, Jennifer Lee Pryor, later confirmed that it was true. It certainly wasn't an affair. It was a dalliance with Brando, as he had with other men, Jennifer clarifies to People. Richard wasn't gay. He just had dalliances. He preferred women over any other experience but wasn't loath to have those experiences, Jennifer said. She further explained Richard would have no shame about Quincy's comments, saying that Pryor was open about his bisexuality, which he wrote about in diaries that she aimed to publish. She explained that the 1970s were a period of personal experimentation, and Pryor's use of substances such as stimulants sometimes led to uninhibited behavior. This aspect of his life gave people a new perspective on a man already known for his fearless and provocative humor. While some admired Pryor for his honesty, others were skeptical. Richards' daughter Rain disputed the claim about her father's relationship with Brando and criticized those perpetuating these stories. Jennifer responded that Rain was unwilling to accept her father's bisexuality. This disagreement highlighted the emotional impact it could have on family members, even when they provided more concrete information on the person involved. But then, Richard once joked about engaging in intimacy with men during his stand-up act. In his autobiography, Prior Convictions and Other Life Sentences, he wrote about a weeks-long romance with a transgender woman named Matassa, describing it as his 2 weeks of being gay. That went on for a couple of weeks, which was a long time for Richard. He didn't have any shame about it, Jennifer says. His candid reflection on this experience fits with his reputation of being unapologetically truthful about his life, no matter how unconventional it might be. Jennifer also discussed her whirlwind romance with Richard Pryor in an exclusive clip. Jennifer met Richard while helping a friend decorate his Northridge, California home. "I was vaguely aware of him as an artist and that he had a reputation of being very hard-edged," she says. "But when I met this man, he was completely the opposite. He was vulnerable and sweet. A Polaroid that his friend took of us when we met showed how smitten I am with him in that picture. I think I fell in love." Speaking about his addiction, she said, "Our love was going to cure all. It was going to be the panacea for any ills that existed, any problems that Richard had, any abuse. That was my solid belief. And of course, reality started sneaking in, and we started visiting some dark places together." Jennifer told ABC News that he had a hard time living a life that wasn't a party every day. He was facing an increasingly dangerous battle with substance abuse. She said the man she fell in love with disappeared when he began freebasing cocaine. Jennifer recalls moving out after realizing Richard loved freebase cocaine as much, if not more, than he loved her. "It broke my heart," says Jennifer, who admits to being a recreational SB-estance user during that time. Richard's freebase cocaine habit threatened his life when he set himself on fire. In August 1981, they married for the first time after Richard left the hospital, but their wedded bliss was short-lived. After Richard supposedly hit Jennifer on their honeymoon, they divorced. I said, "That's not going to happen again, dude," Jennifer remembers. "And he never did hit me again after that. Although before that, there were fights," she says. "There were tumultuous arguments and I wasn't a slouch. I just didn't let myself get beaten. I fought back." Richard's other marriages were also plagued with accusations of domestic violence and spousal abuse. But when he was diagnosed with MS in 1986, Jennifer still loved the comedy legend and returned to help him in his time of need. "He asked me to come back and help him because things were going down the tubes fast," Jennifer reveals. "He said, 'I'm in trouble, can you come back?'" Jennifer says she saw their reunion as a chance to resurrect the good and leave the past behind. "I did return in the summer of '94 and we eventually remarried," Jennifer continues. "He kept apologizing for some of the things that he'd done, saying, 'Jennifer, I hurt you. I was horrible to you and I can't tell you how sorry I am.' There you've got a man sick sitting in a wheelchair, the shadow of his former self, dealing with his life and looking back, happy to deal with it. He came to terms with it and so did I. He's a fascinating man," Jennifer gushes, "and remains the love of my life," Jennifer finally said. What are your thoughts on these secrets exposed after Pryor's death? Feel free to leave your opinion in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.